Okay, we're going to look at your Topic 8 review. Number 1 says find the area of triangle ABC in square yards. So we know the area formula for a triangle is base times height divided by 2. We know the base must run perpendicular to the height and make that 90-degree angle. So this would be our base. So we're going to count that out. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be 4 yards for the base times the height, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4 yards for the height, and then divided by 2. 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 divided by 2 is 8. Our units are yards and area is always squared. Okay, our next one down is a trapezoid, and we can find the area by decomposing it. So if we look at where the corner is here, we kind of draw that all the way through, we can get the height of the triangle, the height of the rectangle, and we already know that if this is 4, then this would also be 4 as far as the height of the triangle. So now we have our rectangle's dimensions, which are 5.5 for the length and base and height, length and width. We have 5.5 by 4. The triangle, we have, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, and a half here. So we have 3.5 inches here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the rectangle, length times width. And so those dimensions are going to be 5.5 and 4. So we have 5.5 times 4. And you can go ahead and put that in on your calculator. So we're going to do 5 units, 1 numerator, 2 denominator, times 4. And you can see we get 22. So that would be 22 inches squared for the rectangle. Now we're going to move over to the triangle, which is base times height divided by 2. So we've already established the base of our triangle is 3.5 inches times the height is going to be 4. And then we divide by 2 because we know a triangle is half of a rectangle or square. Okay, so again, with your calculator, you're going to put in 3 unit, 1 numerator, 2 denominator, times 4, and then divided by 2. And that will give us 7. So 7 inches squared. And now we need to combine and put this back together. So we have the area of the rectangle, we have the area of the triangle, and when we add that, we get 29. So we know the area of the entire trapezoid is 29 inches squared. Okay, so that is going to be choice D. Choice D. All right, let's move on to problem number 3. Problem number 3 is finding the area of a kite. So area of the kite would be where we would multiply what we would maybe call x and y, and then we would divide by 2. So we need our measurements here. So if we add 6 and 9 here, we're going to get 15. And then we're going to multiply it by this piece, which is going to be 6 and 6, which is going to give us 12. And then we're going to divide by 2. So you can do 15 times 12 on your calculator. 15 times 12 is 180. So we have 180 divided by 2. And so we're going to go ahead and divide by 2, and that's going to give us 90 inches squared. And as you can see, that is going to be choice B. All right, moving on to number 4, we have a parallelogram and we're finding the area. So area equals base times height. We have our base number of 7 inches and our height of 4 inches. And 7 times 4 is 28 inches squared. Okay, so that, if we look closely, we have 2 that say 28. So we have to be real careful not to just jump on the first one that says 28. Notice one is 28 inches, the other one is 28 square inches. And we know we're dealing with area, and area is always squared. So we want to make sure we choose the correct units for it. Okay? All right. We're going to move on to number 5. So we can see our rectangle here, and it says, what is the distance from point X to point Y? So here's point X, and here's point Y. So you've got a couple of ways to do it, but one way is simply counting the distance. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units from each other. And then the distance from point Y to point Z is going to be 1, 2, 3. Okay. Number 6, what is the area of the trapezoid? So we're going to decompose our trapezoid into 2 triangles and our rectangle. So we can see this triangle has a base of 3, a height of 4. This triangle would have a base of 3, and since this is 4, this would also have to be 4 centimeters as well. And then our rectangle, as we can see, is 7 by 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the first triangle here. So base times height divided by 2. And we have a base of 3, height of 4 divided by 2. We know 3 times 4 is 12 divided by 2 gives us an area of 6 centimeters squared. Now that is for this first triangle right here. Okay, let's move over to the rectangle. Rectangle we know is length times width. And we have a rectangle that is a 7 by 4. And that would give us an area of 28 centimeters squared for the rectangle. Now we'll move over to the other triangle. Again, base times height divided by 2. And so we have a 3 by 4, base of 3, height of 4 divided by 2. 3 times 4 is 12 divided by 2 would be an area of 6 centimeters squared. Now, we need to combine all these. We have all 3. So we have 28, 6, and 6. So if we do 28, 6, and 6, and you can do that on your calculator, and you're going to get 40. Okay, so what that means is you have a total area of 40 centimeters squared as your final answer. So it asks what is the area, so the only thing we need to put in is the 40 centimeters squared. All right, number 7. The length of line segment QR is 4 units. Segment QR is parallel to the x-axis. The coordinates of point R are, kind of hard to say that here, so we're going to say, okay, we've got Q, and Q is -6 and 2. And R is going to be what we're looking for at this time. Okay. All right. So the first thing that we want to do is say, okay, to get to Q, we would move to -6, and we would move up to +2. To get to R, we would also move to a negative number, and we don't know what that number is right now, but we do know that like Q, we would move to -6, +2. Here we're moving to a negative number and up to +2. So we know our Y move is going to be +2. We know there's a distance of 4 here. So we have -6, and if we add on that 4, that is going to give us a -2. So our X coordinate would be -2. So -2, +2, and -6, +2. So your coordinates of R are -2 and 2. Okay. Number 8. All right, let's see here. The length of a line segment AB is 7 units. Segment AB is parallel to the y-axis. What are the coordinates of B? So let's start with A. A is -3, -4. And B are the coordinates we're looking for. So to get to A, we would move on the x-axis to -3. To get to B, we would also move on the x-axis to -3. So we know the x coordinate. Now, we know that this one is -4 and they're 7 units away from each other. So we have -4 and +7 units would be a +3. Okay, so our units would be, for the coordinates for B, is -3, +3. All right, number 9 says points A and B are 2 vertices of a rectangle. Point C is directly below point B. So somewhere in here is going to be point C. So all I'm going to do just to kind of get our bearings is we know C has to be somewhere directly below. And then we know that D is directly below point A. Now, where I'm placing them is not necessarily where they are, but just in terms of not getting them mixed up with which one is which one is under A, which one is under B. Which of these point pairs could be the coordinates of the other 2 vertices? All right, let's start with D. Let's see if this would work to make a rectangle. So D would mean we would move to -6 and then down to -2.5, which would be about right in here. Okay, so about right in there. And then we would have C, which is going to be 2.1, maybe right there, and down to -2.5, which is right there. So yes, that would form our rectangle with D and C. So A would be an option. I'm just going to put a check mark there. And then let's look at B. B is going to be -6 and then up 2.5. So right in here is where they're saying D could be, which would work so far. And C would be 2.1 and 2.5, which would be right in here. So that could also make a rectangle. All right. Now, the next one, if you'll notice, D is over at +6, which is not at +6. So it could not be C, and it could not be D as well, because that also is moving us to a +6, and D is not here. Let's go to the next video and continue.